Chair, please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. Per Executive Order 2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act, the committee members will be participating using the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public can offer public comment on items by accessing the Zoom webinar online using a desktop computer, laptop, tablet, or smartphone, or by calling into the meeting using a smartphone, cellular phone, or landline. The link to join the committee meeting webinar by computer, tablet, or smartphone is listed on the agenda on how to join by iPhone 1 tab. To join the Zoom webinar by telephone, you may dial either 1-669-254-5252. When prompted, input webinar ID 160-532-0355#. This information is also available on the agenda and will appear on the screen during the public comment period for each item. When I introduce the item that you would like to comment on, you will raise your hand by either tapping the raise your hand button on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or by pressing *9 on your phone. You will be taken in the order in which you raise your hand. You may only speak once on a particular item. When our committee consultant, Brendan Dentino, indicates it is your turn to speak, he will call you by your name as it appears on the Zoom webinar attendee list, or he will read out the last 4 digits of your phone number if you have called into the meeting. That is how you will know it is your turn to speak. If you have joined the webinar by computer, tablet, or smartphone, you will receive a pop-up notice to select to unmute your device. If you have called into the meeting by cell phone or landline, press *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. We will review these instructions briefly again when the public comment period on an item is open. Please wait until the item you wish to speak to has been called before raising your hand to speak. If you raise your hand during a non-comment period, your hand will be lowered. When you are announced as the next speaker, please unmute yourself and offer your comments. Also, please mute the volume on your TV or computer before you begin to speak. A quorum is now present. We will now dispense with the approval of the committee actions of February 25, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the committee actions?
I will so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. I've got a motion by Vice Chair Von Wilpert and a second from Councilmember LaCava. We will now take councilmember questions and comments and have each councilmember register their vote. Please mute yourself once you've completed your comments. Committee member, or excuse me, Vice Chair Von Wilpert.
I have no comments or questions other than thank you so much for all the work that you have been doing as a chair of our Environment Committee to bring this forward, and I vote yes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilmember LaCava.
Vote yes.
Thank you. And Councilmember Kate.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I would also like to register a yes vote. We have 4 yeses, and we will now move to, or we will now take up the non-agenda public comment. Well, I'll get into that in a moment. Per temporary rule 2.6, Non-agenda public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Before we get into non-agenda public comment, I'd like to address some of the confusion at our hearing on February 25. There is a rule in the municipal code that states that city council can hear a maximum of 8 callers per single issue on non-agenda public comment. I think that rule, or the reading of that rule, created some confusion at our previous meeting. I want to apologize for that. My office and the committee want to break down the walls of City Hall and make it easier for folks to participate. And I understand how frustrating it was that it was confusing last time. Again, I apologize for the confusion, and we will make sure that there is more clarity in the future. That said, comments during non-agenda public comment must not relate to an agendized item. Today, thankfully, we'll be hearing just one item. That'll be a hearing. We'll be hearing an update on the gas and electric franchises as item 1. If you'd like to speak on anything related to the gas and electric franchises, including alternatives to franchise agreements like public power, or about our incumbent utility SDG&E, I ask that you raise your hand during the public comment period for item 1 and not during the non-agenda public comment period. Thank you. The public comment period for non-agenda public comment is now open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. If you're watching on City TV or the live stream online and would like to call into the meeting to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252 when prompted. Input webinar ID 160-532-0355#. To raise your hand to speak, select the raise your hand button or press *9. When our consultant, Brendan, lets you know it's your turn to speak, unmute yourself by either selecting the unmute prompt that will appear on your device or by pressing *6 on your cell phone or landline. Brendan, how many speakers do we have in the queue?
We currently have 3 speakers in the queue, so we'll proceed with non-agenda public comment. First speaker. Sorry, the options for unmuting the speakers are not coming up. We're gonna troubleshoot this real fast. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. We can proceed with non-agenda public comment. First speaker, John Stump. You can unmute yourself.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. What I'd like to speak about is public notices for permits. As you know, the city of San Diego for a long time used a paper notice process. They have begun and almost completely switched to an electronic version. Anyone that has read the past paper notice, I think will find them confusing and not particularly informative to the public. They never included a map. There never was a description of who was the applicant, what was the permit exactly seeking, how big the project was, and so that process was not very informative. And now with the electronic, it's less informative. When we have so many opportunities for making public comment. So, you know, CEQA, the purpose of CEQA is to provide the public a notice of the plans of the government, issuing a permit, and giving them a fair opportunity to comment. What I'm asking the committee to do, since it's the environmental committee, is to schedule sometime in the future a review of how we could make those notices more effective to communicate to the public what is actually being asked to get a permit for. In the 21st century, I think they could be improved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We have 3 more speakers in the queue. Next speaker, Veera Habadran Ramanathan. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a climate scientist. I worked in this area for 50 years. The happiest moment of my climate science work was 7 years ago when I briefed Pope Francis before he wrote his climate encyclical. Today easily ranks as my second most exciting moment, knowing that the city I live in is going to offer fossil-free electricity. This is a major step, but it is a first step. And the reason is the climate change is going to, the warming is going to amplify by another 50% in less than 10 years. California has already lost its forests equivalent to 4% of its whole area. So it's a major urgent issue. And I'm hoping this ingenious solution come up by San Diegans will be scaled up to California and to the rest of the nation. I want to thank many heroes here who are making this happen, including my friend, Nicole Caprice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is a phone caller. Phone number ending 7968. You can unmute yourself by dialing *6.
Joy Senyata, District 3. Chair Elo Rivera, thank you so much for your clarifying the situation with the call-ins tonight. That was so appreciated. And before I say a few other things, Chair, I want to thank Brendan and all the committee consultants for their work in helping us, the public, connect with these meetings and participate. Brendan, your work, I know your work, it's vast, the things that you do, and look at today what you're doing. So, but I want you to know as a public person, and something that really, it's important for me to participate, how important this component is of your work and how much you are appreciated and how much I thank you for that. Now, Chair Elo Rivera, I did want to say this to you and anyone who's listening, and especially perhaps the public. Here's what I have learned the hard way. And maybe this is just seniors, but if you are watching on television, TV 24, and you are in the queue via your cell phone, you better be careful because there is a huge, huge is maybe overdoing it, lag time. And the phone is the best thing to stay connected with and listening to the meeting. Because if you don't, you can get lost in the shuffle and lose your place. And it's not the consultant's problem. It was my problem. And that's happened to me a couple of times recently. So just be careful to listen in with your cell phone and not watch TV and then go run for your phone to put in *6. So I think that's it. I wasn't planning on doing this, Chair Elo Rivera. Love your work. It's just great. And the whole committee's great. So thanks for listening and looking forward to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. We love hearing from you. Chair Elo Rivera, that concludes non-agenda public comment.
Thank you, Brendan. And I will echo Ms. Senyata's appreciation for the work that you do, Brendan, and all the committee consultants who really do an incredible amount of work to make sure that these meetings are accessible to the public. So thank you, Brendan, and everyone else who's doing that work for the community. You are appreciated. We will now move to committee members, mayoral staff, city attorney, and IBA comment. Is there any? Hearing none, do we have any requests for continuance? Great. Hearing none, we will now take up the informational agenda. I will now introduce item 1 update on City of San Diego gas and electric franchises invitation to bid process. The public comment period for this item is now open. If you've already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. If you are watching on City TV or the live stream online and would like to call into the meeting to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252. When prompted, input webinar ID 160-532-0355#. To raise your hand to speak, select the raise your hand button or press *9. For this item, we have representatives from the Office of Mayor Todd Gloria's policy team. Please introduce yourselves for the record and let us know how much time you need for your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Lawrence, Director of Policy for Mayor Gloria.
Good evening. My name is Javier Gomez. I am a Senior Advisor of Policy and Council Affairs, Mayor Gloria. We request about 10 minutes, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence and Mr. Gomez. Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you so much. Give me 1 second while I pull up presentation. Good evening. And again, thank you, Chair Elo, Environment Committee, and staff for the opportunity to present the information we have gathered from our community outreach for what San Diegans would like to see in an ITB for a new franchise agreement. We wanted to make sure we were able to maximize access in the safest way possible, provide information on the process, and provide transparency not only to the council, but to community members. Our outreach included a citywide survey, community forums hosted by each council member, and our community engagement team shared with various community groups across the 9 districts. Council members from each district were given the survey and each were asked to share with their respective communities. We have aggregated the data and summarized our finding for today's presentation. One of the mayor's goals with this process was and is transparency. We wanted to hear from the community and hear directly what their desired outcomes may be for a new franchise agreement. We compiled responses through multiple channels, a citywide survey, which was promoted through social media, at community forums, community meetings, and by council offices. 12 community forums hosted by council members, where we presented an overview of the ITB process and information on franchise agreements. Public comment was recorded by council offices and mayor's community engagement team, as well as the Environment Committee. We presented at the Environment Committee, similar to public forums, a presentation was made and public comment was recorded. To reiterate, it is Mayor Gloria's mission to make this process as inclusive as possible. Therefore, it was necessary for us to collaborate and hold multiple public forums to ensure all San Diegans were involved in this crucial undertaking. We collaborated with each council office to host public forums, which were virtual. Forums that were coordinated by the mayor's office to ensure diversity in days and times, weekends, weekdays, mornings, afternoons, and evenings. And I want to thank you all for participating in that process and hosting forums for your community as well. So here are the results of this survey. The public survey was released on January 29th. Today we'll be reviewing its results. We started this survey with an assessment of our current system. On a scale of 1 through 10, citizens were asked to rate their satisfaction level, 1 being very unsatisfied and 10 being very satisfied. And this is what we found. The average citizen rated the current state of gas and electric service a 7 out of 10. And you can see here by the percentages, 10 had the most amount, where people were very satisfied at 42.4%. The second most common response was a 1, meaning people were very unsatisfied at 12.1. And the third most common response was a 9 with a 9.3%. All that totaled to a 7 average rating. Our second question sought to identify the focuses of our electrical provider. And you can see the different options listed on the screen. San Diegans were asked to choose 5. They could choose up to 5, but no more than 5. And here are the top 5 outcomes that were identified. The first one was fire prevention at 47.5% of respondents, decreased pollution at 45.8% of respondents, no service interruptions or continuity of service, 44% of respondents wanted that. To create a smarter grid, 39.6% of respondents wanted that. And last one at 38.7% respondents were asking for a lower cost. Our second question sought to identify the desired outcomes of our gas provider. Of those options, San Diegans were asked to choose 5. And again, they were able to choose up to 5, but no more than 5. Of the many outcomes, we identified the top 5 that were asked. Number 1 being decreased pollution at 58.7%, no interruptions at service at 50.5%, energy efficiency programs at 46.9%, and excellent customer service delivery. 42.9% of respondents said they wanted excellent customer service delivery. And lastly, lower cost, 41.9% of respondents asking for a lower cost. Our fourth question sought to assess the public want for us to consider when what they want us to consider when building our energy future. And here they were able to choose up to 3 responses with the option of other as well. Here are the top 5. Number 1, decreased pollution, 51.1%. By far the number 1. Local employment was second at 36%. Local economic development and investment, 28.8%. Long-term franchise agreements with private energy provider at 27.4%. And expansion of electrical vehicle charging at 24.4%. Our final question sought to fill in any gaps our other options may have missed. We provide a space for citizens to directly voice their concerns and desired outcomes to us. So from those comments, here were the most common things we saw within that. There were about 983 comments. And here's a summary of those comments. These comments will be provided to the public and to the council members in their raw form, meaning that we're just going to give all of the comments without any identifying information in them to keep the responses confidential, but you will have that raw 983 comments to go through. So when reading through these comments, these were the most common things we saw or themes: energy, safety, franchise agreement, municipalization, reliability, and renewable energies. Energy, comments included renewable, clean, green, and equitable energy. For safety, people wanted to ensure that we were safely delivering electricity and making sure we had fire safety mitigation, as well as keeping employees and the public safe when electricity is being delivered. Franchise agreement, most commonly a fair franchise agreement was what was seen within those comments. Third was municipalization. People were against municipalization and for municipalization. Those in support said it would lower the cost of power, provide a community benefit, and ensure we are receiving our energy from clean sources. Comments in support of advocating to municipalize wanted either now or to explore the possibility of municipalizing in the future with a business plan. Those against it said that there is too large of a cost associated with municipalization, and they do not believe the city can adequately run another utility. Next was reliability in terms of energy and services, meaning no service interruptions, and they want to make sure they have continuity of electricity coming to them. And lastly was renewable energy. They want to, San Diegans or community members want to make sure we're getting our energy from clean energy sources and making sure that we're focusing on those renewable energies. So to summarize, a total of 12 community forums were held virtually across all 9 districts, as was mentioned. The mayor's office was present to give the presentation and to gather public feedback. At the 12 forums, there were over 720 people registered. The most common things we heard at the forums were people advocating for a short-term agreement, 3 to 5 years, in order to ensure that we can keep up with the ever-changing energy landscape. public power municipalization. So asking for the city to municipalize or to go to public power. That was 4. Lower rates, emphasizing the high cost that San Diegans pay for electricity. Ensuring that we reach our climate action goals. Community members wanted to make sure that we are living up to the climate action plan and that we're including equity and making sure that we have a climate equity fund as well. And lastly was local jobs, ensuring we are keeping good, high-paying jobs here in San Diego and that they are local. And from the Environment Committee, we had a total of 58 callers. This was all via public comment, 38 calls against a new franchise agreement, 14 calls in favor, and 6 calls neither in favor or against. And y'all were present for those comments there, so you should know the gist of them. But this was kind of the split in terms of quantifying the data in terms of public comment. And we did receive some other forms of communication. We did get people emailing in responses, and I will say this number was as of a few hours ago. We were still getting emails as I just got a ping that we had some updated responses. This is the information that I had as of now. We had 76 people emailing in support of a new franchise agreement and 19 people emailing against a new franchise agreement. And most of the reasoning were common or kind of similar in terms of what they were asking for from what I've already covered in the data. And so our timeline moving forward, mid-March, we plan to issue the ITB, the invitation to bid. April, we plan to open the bids. In May, the first reading at the City Council, and June 1st, 2021, the current franchise agreement will expire. Thank you so much. And I want to, again, just thank all of you for participating and for hosting your forums and making sure that we are engaging the public and that we were able to push the survey out. And we had over, I believe it was 1,300 responses from the survey. So really, really good response there. And just again, thank you all for your participation in helping us make that possible.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. We'll now conduct public comment. Again, to raise your hand to speak, select the raise your hand button or input *9. When our consultant Brendan lets you know it's your turn to speak, unmute yourself by either selecting the unmute button or by inputting *6. Brendan, how many speakers do we have in the queue? Brendan, you're muted right now.
Yeah, sorry, my screen changed. Currently have 38 speakers in the queue. Due to the number of speakers, we were going to do 1 minute per caller. We're going to change the slide here. Sorry, everyone. We're just pulling up the correct slide so that we can, so that callers can see how much time they have left. Okay. Okay, we now have 43 speakers in the queue. I'll begin public comment for item 1. First speaker, Haney Hong. You can unmute yourself.
Good evening, members of the Environment Committee. My name is Haney Hong. I'm President and CEO of the San Diego County Taxpayers Association. For 75 years, we've been the watchdog here on municipal performance. And let me say thanks to the mayor's staff and to all of you for the amount of time that we're spending on this very important process. Just want to highlight that the survey done here or presented here shows that fire prevention is most important for what folks have said in the next electric franchise. What that means is that the invitation to bid should create long-term certainty for bidders so that 1, they can acquire the lowest cost financing to invest in infrastructure, and 2, to keep rates lower. The shorter you make a future contract, the more expensive it will be for ratepayers to get fire protection. I also want to point out that in a municipalization, the city and its taxpayers would be on the hook for investment in fire prevention, as well as the liabilities from all the problems that ensue instead of private shareholders. Just want to point out that the Taxpayers Association supports competition, and the city should try to get as many bidders as possible. So look forward to seeing the outcome of this process. Good evening.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jim Herrick. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Jim Herrick. I'm a long-term employee of San Diego State University, and I really appreciate this committee and the opportunity to speak. I want to speak to the value and support that SDG&E has given San Diego State. You know, I've been there 35 years, so I've had a pretty good perspective. In the last 10 years, SDG&E has philanthropically donated more than $1.2 million in support of scholarships and programs and initiatives to benefit our students. Their employees regularly populate the many boards of the university, from our college advisory boards in science, engineering, and the Fowler College of Business, to our athletics boards, our alumni board, and the Campanile Foundation. And finally, SDG&E has really helped our students by providing internships, and they've hired a lot of our students. There's more than 400 Aztec alumni working for SDG&E. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Leanne Kim.
Good evening. My name is Leanne Kim, San Diego resident of District 6. Shout out to Councilmember Chris Kate. I'd like to thank the mayor and this committee and city council for engaging all of us through these many virtual public forums and the citywide survey, which I took last week, allowing us to participate in the process. I wanted to speak to how SDG&E has impacted the lives of so many people in this region. It has supported more than 500 nonprofits in San Diego, with most of its giving going to underserved communities. That includes Pacific Arts Movement, a nonprofit that I founded, and for more than 20 years, SDG&E supported PAC Arts to train and nurture more than 120 youth filmmakers, mostly students of color. You know, I just wonder whether the city or other potential franchisees would be able to maintain that level of investment, and what San Diego would look like without SDG&E as part of our region, including its employment of 4,400 employees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Amanda Reeton, she, her.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Ritten with San Diego 350, and I live in 2. It is critical that San Diego's energy distribution system helps us meet our climate goals. Under the current franchise agreements, SDG&E has continually undermined the city's clean energy goals, both locally and at the state level. Our next energy system should work to transition off of natural gas. In addition, any agreements must last no longer than 3 years, include community and equity provisions, strong worker protections, and hold the utility accountable. The City of San Diego, community residents, and businesses all deserve the best energy distribution system possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Arnolfo Manriquez.
Yes, good evening. My name is Arnulfo Manriquez, and I am the president and CEO of MAC, providing education, health, housing, economic development, leadership, and advocacy service in San Diego. As you look at the topic of franchises here in San Diego, I want the committee to consider the opportunities that franchises can have in impacting the low-income community. 7 years ago, SDG&E launched a pilot program to install 5,000 EV stations throughout San Diego, and MAC spoke up immediately to ensure that they set aside some stations for low-income communities. They did indeed set aside those stations, and to date, they have installed over 40 electric vehicle charging stations. It has spurred interest for our residents. It created a loan fund. It allowed the creation of a loan fund with a donor to be able to add loans regardless of their credit score to our residents. And so not only are we helping the environment, we are helping people improve their credit. So there's a lot of impact that the community.
Thank you, Arnolfo. Sorry, we're gonna have to. We only have a lot of speakers in the queue. 39 speakers in the queue. Next speaker, Joyce Lane.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Lane from San Diego 350. I want to thank Councilmember Elo Rivera and the District 9 staff for listening to our concerns and for the council members' memo yesterday. We urge the mayor's office to bring the terms of any ITB to the council before release because the city charter authorizes the council as a partner in this process. We urge you to adopt 3-year agreements and to also contract for a detailed business plan for public power. Franchise agreements must ensure accountability, worker protections, and include a commitment to helping us achieve our clean energy goals and equity goals. They must help us get off of fossil fuels. Our future depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Karen Begin.
Good evening. My name is Karen Begin, and I work with San Diego Habitat for Humanity. San Diego Habitat partners with families who help build and buy homes at a price that is affordable to them. In the past 3 decades, we've built and sold 200 new homes and repaired 195 homes for families earning below 80% of the area median income. I'd like to share that San Diego Gas and Electric has been a solid partner as we work to build equity and stability for our neighbors. In addition to thousands of volunteer hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars in contributions, they've helped us achieve our environmental goals by completing energy efficiency evaluations, installing EV charging stations at our headquarters, and installing EV chargers in our newest homes in Logan Heights. This really helps to bridge the divide from higher income earners who have access to more energy efficient options. They've worked with us to reach our homeowners and thousands of our supporters to ensure that all who qualify also take advantage of the special programs and services that they offer. We ask that you consider this important commitment to the community as you evaluate the options.
I'm sorry, the minute goes quick. I know that we just have a lot of speakers in the queue. We have to move on next speaker. Next speaker, Inez Gonzalez Perez Chica.
Good evening. I'm Inez Gonzalez Perez Chica, Executive Director at MANA de San Diego. MANA de San Diego's mission is to empower Latinas in education, leadership development, community service, and advocacy. SDG&E has been a community partner for over 25 years. Nonprofit organizations like ours can't do the consequential work that we do without the support of community partners. SDG&E has invested in our programs, and many of our volunteers are their employees. We are excited to join CEO Carolyn Wynn's effort to increase the number of women in corporate and community leadership positions, as well as to inspire girls to pursue STEM careers. MANA de San Diego is changing the lives of local Latinas, and SDG&E is helping us do that. Thank you for the opportunity to share how SDG&E invests in our community.
Thank you. Next speaker, Michael Taylor.
Yes, my name is Michael Taylor. I'm a Black-owned, disabled veteran-owned company here in San Diego, NWB Environmental Services. We offer archaeological consulting services. We've had a contract with SDG&E for the last 6 years, offering these services, and a contract with the city for the past 5 years, offering the exact same services. With SDG&E, we've gone threefold, our company has. And with the city, we've received little to no work, offering the exact same services. So I've been happy that I've not had to furlough any employees over the last year, and would encourage you to support the renewal of the SDG&E franchise agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Brent Wakefield.
Hello, good evening. Brent Wakefield, President and CEO of Meals on Wheels, San Diego County. We provide meals, and I like to say hot meals and warm smiles on a daily basis to 2,000 seniors across the county who are isolated and at risk. And one of the things that I think is I want to call attention to is kind of the lens of, to me, what needs to be a utility company. And that's a company that's going to offer individualized situations. We're grassroots. we're in the trenches every day dealing with really particular situations. And up until now, SDG&E has been an amazing partner for us. They educate our seniors about energy saving. They help us develop emergency preparation plans, shelf-stable food, blankets. They've been really remarkable partners. And I think this is something that I don't know if everybody understands the level of detail and individualized solutions they help provide in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Robert Robinson. Robert, yeah, there you go.
I just want to say, I'm Robert Robinson. I live in the Folk Council District in Broadway Heights community. And I just want to say that SDG&E is a stellar partner for our community and other communities. And when I look at the survey and the numbers, I have a concern of 900 some people. And there's what, 2 point something in San Diego County. And SDG&E is involved in the green program, clean energy program. What I want to say, changing the franchise and changing the way things are, that means that communities like mine and others will go undone. Right now, SDG&E is doing things to help the community in terms of finances and funding low-income programs so that they work for our communities, and that's what it should be about. So I think that you should look at SDG&E.
Thank you. Next speaker, Shauna McKenna.
I know the members of this committee have heard the facts many times about how much SDG&E collects and profits from San Diego households. I know you've heard that the rates are the highest in the country. I know you've heard that Sempra Energy has a history of fiercely protecting its business model, a business model that is threatening life on this planet. But I want to speak for a second to what could be. The city of San Diego has the chance to affirm that here, with our leadership in building renewable energy capacity for tomorrow's decarbonized grid, we can pull democratic control of energy service into the hands of the people through the people elected to serve us. I know a transition like this is complicated, and I know SDG&E won't make it easy, but I am confident that serving the people, you will have the people on your side.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jay Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and mayor staff as well, and all your staffs for this information. I think the survey is something that we'd like to see the raw data on, but I really wanted to address the process here and the fact that this city council has the power by charter to set terms and conditions for utilities. And you really need to do that, and it's not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. This is the last chance, apparently, that we're going to have to talk to you about this before an ITB is actually issued, according to the mayor's calendar, and that's just not acceptable. Thank you for the memos, Chairman Elo and Member LaCava.
Thank you. Next speaker, Joan Jones.
I'm Joan Jones, Executive Director of the San Diego Regional Fire Foundation. For many years, SDG&E has been a key partner in providing critical equipment for our firefighters and to prepare our communities for emergencies. Because of support like this, San Diego has become a safety model for the entire nation. When faced with challenges like the pandemic and the threat of wildfires, our communities have been able to count on SDG&E's support. San Diego also has a long history of receiving a high level of safe and reliable energy services from SDG&E. Based on a history of water main breaks and the condition of our city streets, I question whether a municipal utility would provide that same level of service. Bottom line, SDG&E is the most qualified to deliver the safe and reliable energy that San Diegans depend on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Barbara Jaffe Rose. Barbara Jaffe Rose, you're our next speaker. You can unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Jaffe Rose. I live in Tierra Santa. I support the city moving to develop a public power utility district and not signing another multi-year franchise agreement. SDG&E would likely be the only bidder for our utility franchise, and they should be disqualified because we are presently in litigation for $35 million over the Pure Water project and have been in litigation with them before for not responding to franchise agreements. So would you enter into an agreement with a contractor that you're suing? You've sued multiple times. Another issue of my concern is that Mayor Gloria said that any franchise agreement must have flexibility on the back end. This must be addressed before any agreement goes out. In my opinion, any changes to a contract after the council has reviewed it may be fraudulent. This could be, and this is an asset worth billions. Let's not have another Ash Street debacle times 10.
Thank you. Next speaker, Zoe Marinello Cohn.
My name is Zoe Marinello Cohn. I'm with SD 350 and I live in District 2. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm here because, like so many San Diegans, I'm very concerned about our future as climate change begins to impact our lives in more extreme ways every year. As San Diego strives to meet its climate goals, it is imperative that the franchise agreements reflect our values of a clean energy and carbon neutral future. We have the opportunity to transition off of methane and natural gas. Now is our time to invest in a future for all San Diegans, and the agreements must include equity and community provisions. As we transition to sustainable energy, it is important to include worker protections and hold utilities accountable. Continuing to engage the residents of San Diego and provide a space for public comment in community forums will ensure that the public has a voice. It is so important for the public to continue to have opportunity to give public input. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your time.
Next speaker, Daniel Zaragoza.
Good evening. My name is Danny Zaragoza, and I have been in the power utility business for over 45 years. I retired from San Diego Gas and Electric after 40 years of service, and while there, I had the honor and privilege of holding the position of Director of Electric Distribution Operations. I know firsthand the complexities of managing a power grid to deliver safe and reliable power to its customers. SDG&E has successfully done this for over 100 years and has the highly skilled and dedicated leadership and workforce to continue this into the future. You have a fully capable partner in SDG&E, and I would highly encourage you to not look past them in your decision-making and renew your franchise agreement with them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Adam Aaron.
Yes, hello. I'm a professor at UC San Diego, where I teach on the climate crisis. I'm an advocate for our campus and for the 10 campuses in the UC to get off the gas right now. The 10 campuses burn fracked methane. The fracking process is toxic, including to the families of our students in the Central Valley. At UC San Diego, our burning of fracked methane emits over 200,000 tons a year of carbon dioxide. This damages the biosphere for all. UC scientists say we must retire fossil fuel infrastructure right now. Our advocacy efforts to do this are being supported by thousands of people in the UC system, and they're being heard by the higher ups. We're meeting the UCSD chancellor next week about it. We are asking for plans to be made now to replace the fossil fuel infrastructure so that electric devices can be used that can run the campuses on wind and solar. I urge the city to consider the franchise agreement in this light. We must shift our energy systems. We must get off the fracked methane gas now.
Thank you. We have 29 speakers in the queue. Next speaker, Maurice Wilson.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for taking my call. I want to speak in favor of San Diego Gas and Electric. I run a national nonprofit called the San Diego Veterans Coalition, And we service many veterans, helping them transition from military to civilian life. We can't do this job without the support of the community and organizations like the San Diego Gas and Electric. With their support for the past 10 years, we've been able to work with over 25,000 veterans as they transition. And we just want to say that San Diego Gas and Electric really goes out of its way to be a great community partner, supporting diversity and inclusion, helping with employment and jobs. And we really support them extending the franchise agreement and carrying on the great work that San Diego Gas and Electric is providing. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, John Stump.
Good evening, my dear elected representatives. I've sent you written comments. First, I think that there's been a misrepresentation to you. Any support of any organization is not by SDG&E. It's by the ratepayers. That money is taken from the ratepayers, and a private corporation gets to decide who gets it, who their friends are. So that's ratepayer money. My main comment is the cost is too high to San Diego families. The cost of SDG&E is the highest nationwide. Only an island has a higher cost than SDG&E. Stop the ripoff. Stop the corporate profits. Stop paying the executive $17 million a year. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next speaker, Daria Flores.
Hi, my name is Daria Flores. I'm a longtime ratepayer in San Diego and a member of San Diego 350. I ask that you make sure any franchise agreements are indeed quality agreements that really benefit the public and support San Diego's climate goals. It's important that they include community and equity provisions, strong worker protections, leverage to the city to hold the utilities accountable, and lower rates. They should also work towards San Diego's climate goals. I also would like to see the city contract for detailed business plans for achieving public power for both electricity and gas to use as a comparison and alternative to the utility franchise agreements. And I ask that any long-term franchise contracts be delayed before these studies are completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jay Delosa.
Good evening. I would like to thank the council members for engaging the community through the robust public outreach sessions and the online survey. As a longtime San Diego resident and a 15-year employee of SDG&E, I know firsthand that they have the resources, know-how, and track record to deliver clean, safe, and reliable energy. We're proud of the innovation and entrepreneurial spirit that SDG&E, a regulated utility, has, which enables us to work hard to deliver our services while protecting from the risk of wildfires in the region to keep us safe. SDG&E is the right choice to keep powering our community and San Diego's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jalen Parker Oasis.
Hello, I'm the VP of External Relations with San Diego Oasis, which is a nonprofit organization impacting thousands of seniors throughout San Diego County. As the senior population is one of the most vulnerable in our community, especially right now, it is vital that we have the support of a company like SDG&E. They make a significant impact to us, to organizations like Oasis. Even when faced with challenges like the pandemic and severe weather conditions and the threat of wildfires, our senior community has been able to rely on SDG&E. They educate, they embrace, and they listen. They listen to what our concerns are, to what our challenges are, and they want to help us fix them. So as you determine who the next energy provider is, we hope that you will consider SDG&E. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Amy Rowland.
Hello, Environmental Committee and Council members, and thank you for the opportunity to comment this evening. And thank you for your extensive public outreach. I'm Amy Rowland, CEO of Pangea Biological, and we've been working with SDG&E for over 20 years as a diverse business. Without SDG&E providing encouragement to us, technical enrichment opportunities such as advanced financial capabilities training, business operations improvement, safety guidance, for our company, we would not have the success we continue to have supporting the local economy by continuing to safely employ our team members in San Diego County. And because of support from SDG&E and the relationships they continue to foster with us, we currently contract with over 40% diverse businesses who help support the work we perform for SDG&E. They continue to help mentor these diverse companies. And with SDG&E's level of commitment, involvement, and excellence to community partners, it helps to ensure the well-being of people with local community and has been proven by SDG&E's commitment to all parties. With that, I'd like to state our commitment.
Thank you, Amy. That minute went by fast. I know we're gonna have to move on to the next speaker. Next speaker, Wendy Hiroshima Khan.
Hello, good evening. My name is Wendy Hiroshima Khan. I'm the president and CEO of the Epilepsy Foundation of San Diego County, representing the 50,000 people impacted by seizure disorders. I just wanted to speak in strong support of SDG&E. I have been in the community and nonprofit leadership positions for more than 25 years, and I can say that they are absolutely critical to moving the mission forward, not only at the Epilepsy Foundation, but I spent 8 years as the president and CEO of the Asian Business Association, where they were directly involved in supporting minority small-owned businesses. I think they go well beyond checkbook philanthropy. Their employees are committees and board members, and they care deeply about impacting our community and the underserved, that we are the safety net for so many people. Thank you so much for your efforts and your time in hearing from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Penn Deal.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Penn Deal, and I'm a member of the Sunrise Movement San Diego, itself part of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. I appreciate the opportunities afforded by the city to allow public input on the ITB process. However, I would like to see more extensive outreach than has been conducted. We urge the City Council to create a short-term extension of the current franchise agreement for at least a year. This will allow time for a more robust public outreach process that prioritizes communication with communities who will be most affected by this decision. It will also allow the city to undergo a feasibility study for a public power provider, for which there has been overwhelming support at franchise forums. It's time to create a power system which stops contributing to climate change, lowers financial burden on working families, avoids public safety power shutoffs, and stops serving the interests of private investors, and instead serves the needs of the public. Public power can be that system. Thank you for your time, and please fight for the people of San Diego, not fossil fuel millionaires.
Thank you. Next speaker, Tara Hammond, she, her.
Good evening, Chair Elo Rivera and council members. My name is Tara Hammond. I'm the founder of Hammond Climate Solutions and a District 1 resident. I worked in the local solar industry for nearly a decade, where I watched SDG&E undermine rooftop solar, community choice energy, climate action plans, and climate justice. And this is still happening today. We are in a climate emergency and we must act like it. The city's energy system must support our climate goals, and having an investor-owned utility keeping us addicted to dirty, harmful natural gas isn't just wrong, it's deadly. We support the city exploring public power business plans for achieving both gas and electric. If the franchise agreements are signed, we need short-term agreements that are no more than 3 years and include a transition off fossil fuels, building a healthier, climate-resilient, clean energy future. A term longer than 3 years is another handout to SDG&E at a time when many San Diegans cannot afford food, rent, and to keep the power on. Let's prioritize a just, livable future instead of investor profits.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Tara.
your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker, Scott Bakowitz.
Good evening, committee. I'm Scott Boskowitz, District 3 resident and Environmental Programs Manager for SDG&E. I proudly worked for this company for the last 8 years, and their energy portfolio reflects our region's prioritization of clean and renewable energy. And their sustainability focus is aligned with my own interests achieving state climate goals, leading the widespread adoption of electric transportation and energy storage, and maximizing the climate resilience of San Diego's grid. I'm also proud of our company's environmental compliance record and dedication to enhancing and preserving the environment. My teams are the dedicated stewards of utility easements located throughout the city's urban canyons, parks, preserves, and bays. Whether improving the grid or maintaining the energy infrastructure already in place for our customers, we prioritize and help ensure the protection of the city's watershed and its abundant natural, cultural, historic, and visual resources. SDG&E is an entrepreneurial and innovative leader and an excellent long-term partner.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to move on to the next speaker. Next speaker is Alex, he, him.
Hi, good evening, members of the committee. My name is Alexander Hahn. I'm a resident of San Diego County. I'm a member of the Sunrise Movement, and which is also a member of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. So I just wanted to address the people who spoke earlier. So they were mentioning how SDG&E have helped their organizations and communities. I completely believe that. Like, they totally helped you out, and that's great. But realize this is only a small part of the pie of what they earn. Most of the money that they get is going back to the shareholders. And so is it really fair to give praise to a business that rips people off, working people off, and then donates it as charity? So SDG&E passes its fees on to working people instead of honoring its contracts. So if we municipalize our power, that money, all of that money could be going back to our communities, funding affordable housing, alleviating racial inequality, repairing infrastructure. All that money could be going back to us, not just parts of it. And then the rest of it is going to the shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Sheila Ott, she, her.
Good evening, Chair Ela Rivera and council members. My name is Shayla Ott, and I'm with Hammond Climate Solutions and a District 3 resident. First, thank you, Chair Ela Rivera and Councilmember LaCava for your efforts to ensure San Diegans get a better deal in the energy franchise agreements. I also wanted to once again encourage the city to pursue a feasibility study for public power in order to evaluate this as an effective option in comparison to utility franchise agreements. If gas and electric franchise agreements are signed, we need 3-year agreements that ensure accountability and a pathway to meet our climate action plan goals, including 100% clean energy. I also strongly support the creation of a climate equity fund, which the franchisee contributes to reinvest in communities of concern. I also wanted to emphasize that San Diegans pay some of the highest utility rates in the country, which we've heard over and over again, and we deserve a partner, not an adversary that profits off of the backs of families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is David J.
Good evening. While I speak tonight as the Director of Development at National Conflict Resolution Center, I've worked across the nonprofit sector in our city for many years. I cannot think of another company that has demonstrated a more consistent commitment to supporting nonprofits throughout the region. And the breadth of their support, from environmental organizations to groups like ours that focus on building a more civil society, is remarkable. SDG&E has supported NCRC in our efforts to train youth leaders in communication and conflict resolution skills. They've been a title sponsor of our annual Peacemaker Awards dinner for many years, helping us honor individuals who do extraordinary things to better our society. Beyond just financial support, SDG&E officials have served on our board of directors for many years, providing us, and as you've heard, so many other organizations, invaluable strategic guidance. SDG&E is an invaluable asset in our community, part of the very fabric of our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Currently have 19 speakers in the queue. Next speaker is a phone caller, phone number ending 7968. You can unmute yourself by dialing *6.
Joy Sunyata, District 3, Jessica and Javier of our mayor's office, thank you for the presentation and for expanding your hours of outreach tonight. Here's what touches me in this matter. Whether or not there are unfair rates for gas and electric charged to affordable housing projects, residences. In some of these residences, utilities are paid for by some renters. who are often low or very low income. And yes, some renters get a subsidy for utilities, yet the buck stops somewhere. I am so grateful for the wave of equity that is moving into and through our city government now. San Diego Gas and Electric.
Thank you, Joy. I'm sorry I have to cut you off. We do
Is
have
that
to
it?
move. We do have to move to the next speaker. Next speaker, Heather Hofsche.
Hello, council members. I'm Heather Hofsche. I live in San Carlos, and all of the speakers that we have heard, not just here, but also at the franchise forums that you guys held, which we really appreciated, who were talking in favor of SDG&E had the same talking point. Whether they work for SDG&E or whether SDG&E, supports their company or their nonprofit, they support SDG&E because SDG&E gives them money, quite frankly. They're also, SDG&E is also costing the people of San Diego a tremendous amount of money. According to the San Diego Union Tribune just last week, we, who pay the highest rates in the nation, now have over 300,000 people who are behind on their utility bills by almost $145 million. We can't afford that. We can't afford to, pay for their botched light bulb program that they had to reimburse people for, or the pure water project fees. We can't afford to pay for their deaths from wildfires. Please support anyone else for our franchise agreements. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Matt Him.
Good evening, council members. This is Matthew Vasilakis from Climate Action Campaign, part of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, dialing in to urge the mayor and council to honor and center the community's clear and consistent calls for franchise agreements that put residents, not SDG&E, first. With the results of the community feedback with the climate crisis the top concern in nearly every category, the city must secure agreements that ensure mutual accountability in helping us achieve a zero carbon clean energy future. Of course, these agreements must center equity and community investment over SDG&E executives and fossil fuel corporations. We echo the council members' concerns and calls for short-term agreements with real accountability, worker protections, climate action, equity, and a robust public power study. We don't need SDG&E to keep buying off supporters in silence. We need a utility that will stop policing our community and will help meet our climate and equity goals. Don't let this opportunity turn into another bad real estate deal. We urge you to listen to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Marie Chen, she, her.
Good evening, council members. My name is Marie Chen, and I live in District 6. I want to speak to you about process of the whole ITB. I appreciate the effort that the city has put forward to for the forums and the surveys to solicit feedback from the community, but that doesn't go far enough. The community deserves to see how their comments and feedback are implemented in the ITB. As such, the ITB should actually go before City Council before it is sent out for bid. This would provide an opportunity for the public to review it. In last year's ITB, I was pleased to see that there was an audit process outlined. But on a deeper look, the audit process really bore no teeth. So the public should be able to comment and to review and comment the ITB before it goes out, and it should go before the City Council before it's sent out for bid. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next speaker, Dickren Arnold.
Good evening, Council. I am DeCrane Arnold, Area Vice President for Worldwide Technology. First, I would like to thank you for engaging the community. This public outreach and sessions brings out the community, which is great. Worldwide Technology is a supplier to San Diego Gas and Electric as one of their IT partners, and many of our employees are their customers. We work hand in hand with many of the fine folks at San Diego Gas and Electric who tirelessly work to ensure that their customers receive the technology experience they expect. San Diego Gas and Electric constant devotion to supply diversity and their community has encouraged us to be a better community partner as well. When their commitment to their customers, employees, and to the city of San Diego are unmatched by any other utility. I'd like to show my support behind San Diego Gas and Electric, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you. We have 14 speakers in the queue. Next speaker is Kip Lund.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Javier Gomez. Thank you, Councilmember Elo Rivera, Councilmember LaCava, Councilmember Kate, all the councilmember staff for your franchise forums, your time, just hearing the people. I just want to know what the plan to assess the value of SDG&E's assets are so that we may know the cost of acquiring them. How can we ensure that we have a municipalization plan within the next 3 years when this franchise agreement ends? SDG&E's entire business model is dependent on fossil fuels. There is absolutely no way that we will be able to achieve clean renewable energy as long as we continue to rely on SDG&E. I believe a SDSU professor mentioned that they receive $1 million a year from SDG&E. That is 1 day of profits for them. Those are profits that we, the city of San Diego, could take back and give back to our communities. Thank you all for your time. Please listen to your community.
Thank you. Next speaker, Sonia Robinson.
Hi, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak. I want to greet our chair, Council Member Sean Elo Rivera, all of our council members that are present today, and the mayor has done a fabulous job in making sure that our voices in the city and throughout get heard. My concern right now is the constraint timeline that this franchise is on. Our mayor has said that we need to imagine or reimagine how we are facing challenges that the city is willing to take on. And I do believe with challenges does come innovation. And with that innovation, I think we need to apply to this franchise. There's opportunities that this franchise can provide the city with revenues, and as well as to assure that our energy future is in line with our renewable energy generation, our climate action plan
Thank you,
throughout the
Sonia.
city and county.
I'm sorry.
That 3 years,
I'm gonna
this
have
should
to
be
cut you off, Sonia. I'm sorry. We have to move on to the next speaker. No, a minute is not a lot. Next speaker is Karina Gonzalez.
Good evening, Chair Elo Rivera and council members. My name is Karina Gonzalez, and I'm with Hammond Climate Solutions. Today, I am urging you to put the interests of the people of San Diego over corporate interests. The gas and electric franchise agreements will determine whether we are able to build a clean energy future or if we will be locked into another long-term agreement with dirty fossil fuels. We need a transition away from fossil fuels in order to reach our climate goals and stop the climate crisis. San Diego families deserve clean and affordable energy. Instead, we pay the highest rates in the United States. We cannot afford to be locked into another long-term agreement with SDG&E, who is profiting millions a day off of the backs of San Diego families who are struggling to pay their bills and put food on the table. Short-term, 3-year agreements with a plan to transition off of fossil fuels would ensure accountability and the ability for us to reach our climate goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have 11 speakers in the queue. Next speaker, Eugenia Welch.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'm Eugenia Welch, the president of Alzheimer's San Diego. We serve some of the most vulnerable in our community, people living with dementia and their caregivers. All of our services are completely free of charge, and that is in no small part thanks to the generosity of SDG&E. Over the years, they have donated more than $500,000 to our organization, but their commitment extends far beyond simply writing a check. From the top down, SDG&E and its employees have also invested their invaluable time and their voices to support Alzheimer's San Diego. SDG&E also allows time for employees to receive training to recognize the signs of dementia in their customers so they can ensure at-risk seniors get the support they need. These are just a few of the many ways that SDG&E supports our community. As a local nonprofit, Alzheimer's San Diego is proud to call SDG&E a partner. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Kara. The next speaker in the queue just says Kara. It's your turn to speak. You're gonna unmute yourself.
Unmute. My name is Kara Mears. I'm with the San Diego Rescue Mission. And I just want to do a shout out. One, thank you for letting us be on this and participating, but I'm just blown away with the breadth of support that SDG&E does to so many other nonprofits and businesses. We serve the homeless and the hungry of San Diego, and you know, SDG&E has proven that they care about our fellow human. They show us just as much love as they show everybody else out there, but they don't do it just with money. They volunteer their time, their expertise. They do fundraisers or in-kind donations for us. And I just think that that's absolutely critical for a partner in the city, is taking care of not only its customers, but those that don't even have a place to call home. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Steve Garcia.
Good evening. For having me. My name is Steve Garcia. I'm a disabled veteran and owner of Patriot General Engineering, a disabled veteran business enterprise. SDG&E has been paramount in helping local DBE small businesses like Patriot General. In the last 15 years that I have been a part of the supply chain, I can attest not only personally that SDG&E promotes local small businesses, but they are also industry leaders in commitment to safety and green technology, and have elevated my business exponentially to those aspects by association. We hope we can continue to be a part of their success in helping the local community succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Rebecca Ribzik.
Hi, good evening. This is Rebecca Ribzik, the Economic Development and Government Affairs Manager with the Downtown San Diego Partnership. SDG&E has been and remains a great partner to downtown. Their 140-year history of running an advanced, reliable grid and their commitment to the San Diego community exemplifies this partnership. We encourage the city and SDG&E to work together on achieving the city's clean energy goals, prioritizing safety and reliability, and spurring an investment in infrastructure that beautifies and enhances walkability downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 8 more speakers in the queue. Next speaker is Adam Cooper, his.
Hi, my name is Adam Cooper. I'm a PhD student in atmospheric chemistry at UC San Diego. I'll continue saying what my colleagues have warned for decades. We need to immediately cut greenhouse gas emissions if we want a livable planet. Full stop. San Diego is one of the few cities with the momentum to tackle this crisis head first, but only if we immediately cut ties with fossil fuel companies who have caused this crisis. There is no path to zero carbon that involves a company which profits off the burning of methane gas. Any potential franchise agreement should be short, begin the phase out of methane gas lines, and allow for the buyout of infrastructure. Right now is our chance to take ownership of our energy future through implementation of public power. Decades of politicians haven't listened to scientists and failed their constituents. I hope this city council can be different. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, David Seed. You're unmuted. You can provide your comments.
Good evening. My name is David Zed. I'm the president of the House of China in Balboa Park, San Diego. I also represent the Chinese School of San Diego. We endorse San Diego Gas and Electric and its franchise. We believe they are exemplary corporate citizens, and they nest well with our goal of promoting, presenting, and preserving culture and friendship throughout the nation and locally. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Andrew Zhang Zhao.
Hi, I'm a PhD student at UC San Diego in District 1, and I study new clean energy technologies. And I guess first things first, I've learned a ton about the community members that have benefited from SDG&E tonight, but they own a monopoly. So they make hundreds of millions of dollars, so they're able to donate to the local community. And I think a municipal power would do the same. But I guess I want to echo Adam Cooper, and climate change is caused by carbon dioxide emissions. SDG&E has gas in its name. And I understand that the company says that they are for clean energy technologies. And I do believe that they are investing in some solar, but at the point where they profit from burning fossil fuels, their shareholders will not stop burning it as they still keep making money. So I fully endorse municipal power.
Thank you. Next speaker, it says call in user 1. You can unmute yourself. Public member of the community who called in has a name. Oh, they removed themselves from the queue. So we'll go to the next speaker, Nate Fairman.
Good evening, Nate Fairman from IBW Local 465. It is very clear even from your own public power consultants that the city should enter into a long-term franchise agreement with SDG&E. Municipalization is not possible without labor support, or like your consultant said, quote, at least labor remaining neutral. Well, we are in fact on the record supporting a long-term agreement with SDG&E, and I have sent you all a copy of that resolution, which states, quote, be it resolved that the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council supports a renewed franchise agreement between the city and SDG&E with a term that assures decades of continued partnership and protection for our current and future union jobs with the utility, end quote. We support an agreement of at least 20 years that protects workers, ensures card check neutrality in organizing drives, and creates an equity fund. No more extensions. Don't walk away from our union utility workers. Our members risk their lives powering this city, and we would never walk away from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Morgan Justice Black.
Hi, my name is Morgan. I'm a native San Diegan, a District 2 resident, and an SDG&E employee. My job is to help enable environmental nonprofits to deliver their mission better by investing SDG&E's shareholder dollars into environmental programs in our community. For the last decade, SDG&E's Environmental Champions program has supported hundreds of grassroots environmental organizations. Through this charitable support, organizations have developed robust and regionally relevant climate science curriculum. Hundreds of thousands of local youth have experienced SDG&E's funded environmental programs that build climate literacy and a better planet. For the last 2 decades, SDG&E employees have volunteered with I Love a Clean San Diego at Coastal Cleanup Day and worked alongside San Diego Audubon Society to support least term habitat restoration for 10 years. The next franchise agreement should take into account SDG&E as a longtime community partner, investing in communities and the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is a phone caller, number ending in 7498. You can unmute yourself by dialing *6.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Elder. I'm an environmental engineer and a volunteer with the Sunrise Movement San Diego. Thank you for your attention to this crucial item for our energy future. As you've been hearing, there are many reasons why SDG&E is not serving our community. While lining the pockets of their shareholders, they are also distracting with their funding of nonprofits. Private utilities are only thinking about their profits quarter after quarter, year after year. They want to keep their costs low, sometimes at the detriment of the community, if we're thinking about PG&E, for example, and maximizing their profit through exorbitantly high rates. Instead, we could be reinvesting in our communities who need it the most and supporting our local small businesses. I'm asking you to please put the needs of our community first and seriously consider a path for public power. We can do this by ensuring protection for our utility workers who are putting their lives on the line every day. We want to make sure that they're protected in the transition to the green economy with good union jobs.
Thank you.
We've known about climate change since the 70s, and our leaders since
your
then have
minutes
failed
elapsed.
us.
I know a minute is not much time. I'm sorry. Next speaker, Bill Roper.
Good evening. My name is Bill Roper. I'm a local businessman. I'm not affiliated with SDG&E or Sempra Energy. And I'm also, while I do a lot of philanthropic and charitable work, I'm not calling in support of any particular organization that might receive support from SDG&E, although I applaud it. I'm calling as a businessman. I'm concerned about a number of things tonight that are frankly misinformation or insinuations, and I urge the committee not to respond to information. For instance, there's been a lot of conversation, which we all are in favor of, about the climate, clean energy, moving away from fossil fuel, GHG emissions, and so forth. SDG&E has been transitioning for decades from fossil fuels to renewables sourced electricity. Today, 45% of the electricity in San Diego.
Thank you, Bill. I'm sorry, your minute has elapsed. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to end your time here. Chair Elo Rivera, that concludes public testimony on item 1.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you to everyone who called in. I'll have more thank yous in a moment. I'm kind of blown away at the amount of participation we've had in this committee, and I'm just genuinely grateful to everyone who took the time to call in. I will now turn it over to the committee members for questions and comments. As a reminder, this is an informational item only and no motion is required. And we will start with Vice Chair Von Wilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you, especially Chair Elo Rivera and Jessica and Javier from Mayor Gloria's team for bringing this item forward. I completely agree. Having the public participate in this very important process to select a franchisee for our gas and electric services is incredibly important. And thank you to all of the members of the public and all of the wonderful advocacy groups who have participated in not only tonight's meeting, but also everyone who's participated over the past 2 months in our community forums and our previous Environment Committee items. Thank you to those of you who have reached out to have Zoom meetings with us at City Council and for all the work you're doing to dig in. I really appreciate it. So I also want to thank the Mayor's Office and Councilmember Moreno for both of your work on the creation of a climate equity fund that we will be considering at City Council next week on Tuesday. So everyone, please do tune in for that. We're very excited to bring that forward. And I do have a couple of questions before I make any comments for the Mayor's Office. And first of all, clean renewable energy is incredibly important to me, and I know to all of San Diego. And I want to clarify that tonight we are just discussing the franchise agreement, which is the agreement to allow a utility company to transport electricity and gas through the public right-of-way. But in terms of the source of the power that we will use, we do have a new option coming, and customers will soon be able to choose between SDG&E or another franchisee and San Diego Community Power. So for the Mayor's Office, I'd love if you could please clarify for us that no matter what happens with the franchise agreement, the establishment of San Diego Community Power will still enable us to use 100% clean energy sources. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, we are transitioning our own city accounts to the 100 option, 157 accounts starting this week.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yep. I'm very excited about that. I'm also very glad that we're going to choose the 100% clean energy option. I applaud us for that. Also, so can you provide an update on the timeline going forward with the deadlines currently in place with the ITB?
Sure. Javier, do you want to pull up the last slide? So we intend to issue a new ITB in mid-March. I don't have the exact date yet, of course, but we're working hard with the city attorney's office to get something out. We intend to have it open for 30 days. So we would open the bids in April. At that point, we'd be reviewing bids and potentially negotiating, if necessary, with the most responsive bidder. And our intent is to bring a first and second reading to City Council before the current franchises expire on June 1st. So we're looking at early to mid-May for that first reading, if the timeline goes as planned.
Got it. Thank you. And I'd love to know what the city is doing to actively solicit multiple bids. How are we getting the word out to different utility providers that could be interested?
Sure, thanks for the question. So right now I've been in the process of reaching out to bidders who might not have submitted during the last process, but who had expressed an interest in the RFI, in the original RFI. So having conversations with those who have responded to my request for meetings to better understand why they might not have bid in the past. Also reaching out to prospective bidders. We also want to make sure once we issue the ITB that we're widely advertising it and using all available mediums. So pulling out ad space, Utility Dive is the industry newsletter. It's certainly difficult to bring in competition, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure this is fair and open competition as the charter provides for.
Great, no, wonderful. And will the mayor's office be bringing the ITB back to City Council prior to its release?
No, we don't have that built into the current timeframe.
Okay. Let's see. And I know that the timeframe, we can push it back if we're not able to come to an agreement. So
if we don't have an agreement, we will ask for an extension.
Okay, got it.
Or if we're getting close to the timeline, we need more time, we will request another extension.
Okay, thank you. Great. Well, I'd love to take this opportunity to highlight some of my priorities for the upcoming ITB that I'd love. The mayor's office is collecting a lot of feedback, and we've collected a lot of feedback from folks all throughout the city and in District 5. So we have a couple of priorities, and I can put this in a memo tomorrow, so no need to take a bunch of notes. But first priority is the length of the term. And with regard to the agreement's length of term, at this time, I believe the city should move forward with no longer than a 5-year franchise agreement for the gas and electric franchises. The shorter term will allow the city to closely monitor the ultimate winner of the ITB to ensure that they are acting in good faith to meet the city's climate action goals, also while being a good partner in operations with our right-of-way. We have a lot of streets torn up here in District 5 and Scripps Ranch and in Penasquitos to accommodate very much needed utility equipment, but we have a lot of problems trying to get SDG&E to come and fix the street once it's done, let alone, our pure water project that will also be in construction here in D5 and Scripps Ranch. So we really do want a good partner to make sure that they can get out of the way if we need to move our own equipment, or if they can fix our roads and streets if they can't. So that would be very helpful to have in the contract in the ITB. I also want to make sure we have a short goal or short term, because it'll provide the city time to further evaluate our options for the future of these franchises, including evaluating public power district or municipalization and creating a business plan to evaluate that. Another major priority is fire protection, which I know we've heard a lot from the community and from industry leaders that SDG&E has actually done a great job with. But this agreement needs to include strong language related to wildfire prevention and protection. Climate change is making wildfires worse, and a lot has changed in the last 50 years since the last agreement was entered into. And I know that everyone knows wildfires are continuing to be a major threat to our city, but so are the power shutoffs, and making sure that folks who especially rely on power can get it. There's lots of folks who need it for medical devices, let alone our food and working from home, going to school from home. So making sure we make that balance part of our ITB is important to me, especially up here in District 5. I also want to talk about the bid amount. In terms of the minimum bid, there's a lot of different calculations that go into this, but my primary focus with the minimum bid is that it's prohibited from being charged to ratepayers. The bid amount must be paid in cash by shareholders up front, because SDG&E does make a lot of profit and shouldn't have to charge us ratepayers for this. Another major priority is labor issues. I definitely hear from our workers who are out there on the front lines all the time, making sure that our power lines and our gas lines are working and are safe for us and reliable. And so I do want to ensure that the next bidder or the next ITB has protections built in for worker safety. That's one of my highest priorities, making sure that every man and woman comes home at the end of the day. I also want a commitment that they will allow their workers to organize, join, and form unions, as is their right under federal labor law, by committing to card check neutrality. And for our ratepayers, our billing transparency. The ultimate winner of the ITB, there must be a requirement that any billing is transparent, an itemized breakout of charges within the bill. Our residents shouldn't have to struggle to understand how much they're being charged, where their payments are going, especially now as we're seeing with the COVID pandemic, a lot of folks are suffering and have lost their income through no fault of their own. And so I want to make sure that we are partners with them in getting an ability for them to continue having gas and electricity, even if they can't afford it right now. And finally, the biggest thing is just being a better partner to the city. You know, one of the most important features is that the ultimate winner should be a good partner with our city. We shouldn't have to sue to try and get them to work with us when we have major infrastructure operations, including Petco Park or our pure water program. So when operating in our right of way, this includes reducing construction impacts felt by our communities, working with our city planners. And I understand, you know, we could always do better too, to make sure that we get information to the utility as well. So I know it's a two-way street, but abiding by our street preservation ordinance unless absolutely necessary to be able to quickly fulfill a repair in the location. Additionally, they must be a partner in our climate action change goals, period. Should the franchise winner be unable to meet any of our climate goals, including helping us with electrification of transportation, we need to be able to support a fleet of electric clean vehicles by 2035. And right now what we have in the city is a network of gas stations. We need a much more robust network of EV charging stations. So I want their commitment that they will help us to get there. That's why I believe that a 5-year agreement timeframe is essential to ensure the franchise winner acts in good faith as a partner of the city and allow us to do our own due diligence in determining the best path forward for our residents and businesses. And I appreciate your time tonight. And thank you, Chair Elo Rivera, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Vice Chair Von Wilper. We will now go in order of council districts to Councilmember LaCava.
Well, thank you, Chair. I also want to thank Mr. Gomez and Ms. Lawrence for the report, and I want to thank the mayor for helping us engage the public on this issue. Thank you to everyone that wrote or called in this evening. As the mayor's office nears release of the invitation to bid, the ITB, I continue to look for language that will help us reach our climate action plan goals, protect ratepayers, and rebuilds the public's trust. Terms and conditions, some of them that have been mentioned by the public testimony today, that I included in my priorities memo to the mayor. This includes local renewable generation and a committed partnership with the San Diego Community Power, both critical to our regional path to decarbonization. As my colleague said, we need a true energy partner with shared goals, a partner that supports our initiatives for clean energy, rooftop solar, and that will be on our side in conversations with the CPUC. We also need the public protections of a term limited to 5 years, a biennial audit, and a minimum bid paid upfront. We need short-term franchise contracts so we can do long-term planning for a carbon-free future. We all talk about it, carbon-free or even net carbon-free energy. It won't happen overnight. We need to start now to meet our goals by 2035. And last, I've said numerous times, we need a business plan for public power. So I got a couple of questions for staff. I don't know if they'll be able to answer them, but I want to talk about the CPUC. That's somebody that we don't talk about in these conversations. I understand that terms and conditions the city may impose or even negotiate with the franchisee can be overturned by the CPUC. Is that your understanding?
Sure. So I'll do my best to answer the question. I may need some assistance from the city attorney's office as well. But it certainly depends on what we put in the franchise agreement, of course. And we need to be mindful that what we are putting in a franchise agreement versus maybe an outside agreement with our energy partner falls within the confines of what is legally permissible in a franchise. So a new provider will also need to go to the CPUC for a new license as well to provide this kind of service. So I think it's hard to know if they can and would overturn. It really depends on what is in the franchise agreement itself.
That's a fair answer. And obviously I was giving you a hypothetical, but it certainly would suggest that it limits our ability as to what we could put into a franchise agreement. And it would perhaps be influenced by whether the franchisee would rush up to the CPUC, which seems to be quite mysterious in its operation in sustaining any agreement. I have heard stories that in the past, agreements were reached and then the CPUC overturned them, which frustrates our ability to try to come up with a strong agreement. One other question, maybe I missed it, but in discussing the timeline, once the bids are open, do you plan, or will there be a period for further negotiations with the preferred bidder by the mayor's office before you come to City Council?
If it's necessary to secure the best value for the city, for instance, if there's exceptions taken to terms that we feel are necessary before bringing it forward to council.
Okay, fair enough. I think I've made my position on this clear by my comments in the past and articulated in that memo to the mayor. So with this, I'll just close and thank Chair Elo Rivera for your attention to these agreements, holding a special evening meeting, giving us an opportunity last week to hear about the public power auction. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation with the committee. And again, thank you to the mayor's staff and to the mayor for this effort. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember LaCava. Councilmember Kate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the mayor's staff as well too for all of your work in coordinating with all of us as council offices to get information out to members of the public. And I think this is probably my 7th hearing on this item in the last 4 years or so. And so I appreciate those who are committed to speaking during public comment on this. Mr. LaCava got to the question that I had in regards to once the ITB comes out, if there is a determination, whether that's by the mayor's office or the office of the city attorney, to whom determines if a bid is non-responsive and the authority by which the mayor has to negotiate prior to bringing forward a franchise agreement to council for our consideration.
Sure, I would ask the city attorney's office to respond to the mayor's authority to amend or negotiate.
Thank you. This is Deputy City Attorney Corinne Newfer. We have looked into that issue, and we continue to work with the mayor's office on that particular issue. And we believe that there is some potential for that, should that be necessary.
Yeah, but okay. we're still working. We are actively writing the invitation to bid and the language in there, which will provide for what is deemed a responsive bidder and what the next steps would be. So we're still working through the language, truthfully.
Okay, I appreciate that. I mean, I looked through this process. I understand the roles that council has versus the mayor. The council has the authority to say yay or nay, but in our charter and the strong mayor form of government, the mayor has the authority to bring forward contracts. And I think we need to give the mayor the benefit of the doubt that he's going to do his best to negotiate the best deal and bring that forward for our consideration, whether or not the council likes it or not. That's our prerogative, but there is a role for us to play. And I have get more confidence in the mayor that he's going to do what he feels in the best interest of the city to get a franchise agreement passed. It may not be something that I like. I have a difference of opinion with my colleagues in terms of term. I don't support a 5-year term. I don't see how there's any reasonable investment that any company, no matter whom it is, whether it's a power company or any other contractor that we have to make any type of investment in any type of infrastructure to provide a benefit to residents is not going to be amortized over 5 years. It's just not going to happen. You know, it's just not reasonable to expect that in my opinion. But reasonable minds can differ on that. But I think I provided enough feedback over the past 3 years on this, where I stand on this, and coming from someone who drives a zero emission vehicle, has solar on their home. So there's no question where I stand on these issues, and I want what's best for my ratepayers, but I also see what happens when things come to the city and we have control over those things. And soon enough, we're going to be hearing about water and sewer very soon. So in that respect, I trust in the mayor and your team, Ms. Lawrence, to bring forward something that is going to be the benefit of all of us as ratepayers, and look forward to getting to that point where we can adopt something and move on to other issues that are of importance to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilmember Kate, Councilmember Lucava, and Vice Chair Von Wilpert for your comments. Thank you, Jessica and Javier, for the update and the information and the incredible amount of time you've spent on this over the last couple months. Jessica, I imagine you didn't know that you'd become familiar with Utility Dive when you signed on to this job. I think that is a testament to the amount of work that you're doing to not only engage in this process, but to ensure that this is as competitive as San Diego can make it. I do sincerely thank you for that. I also want to thank my District 9 team. We hosted 3 forums. Those were all hands on deck forums with the entire team engaged in them right alongside the mayor's team. So there's been a lot of work put into this in a short amount of time. And I think just I want to extend additional thanks to the mayor's team, because this shouldn't have been your problem to deal with. The city had 50 years to know that the last deal was about to expire, which should have been ample time to get it right before the extension was needed. So despite this not being a problem of your making, I appreciate your earnest efforts to make it work out as well as possible for the city. Also, again, a thank you to the public for engaging in this, the forums, and then again tonight. Democracy is important to me, and I think that it should be important to everyone, especially right now. And the engagement of the community was really inspiring to me, even if it was from different perspectives. We had PhD students and business owners, executive directors of nonprofits, and community activists all weighing in tonight, and I think that that's a really, really great thing. As I've said on multiple occasions, my goals, I have 3 goals. 1, get the best deal possible for the city and its residents. 2, move as quickly as possible to a zero carbon future. And 3, build trust by increasing transparency and accountability. Yesterday, I released a memo that outlines my priorities for the gas and electric franchises, which were informed in large part by the feedback that the District 9 team collected during the community engagement process. Thank you again for engaging in that process and offering the feedback that you did. That was really, really important to us. Among my priorities are a 5-year agreement, upfront and annual payments that are commensurate with the significant profits investor-owned utilities make, protections for the rank and file employees of the utility, a sincere partner who works with the city on achieving climate action goals, and a feasibility study for public power. There's another priority that I want to highlight, and that is corporate accountability. The lone bidder for the franchises last year, SDG&E, has been in constant litigation with the city, including an existing $35.4 million lawsuit filed by the city against the franchisee for breach of contract. Essentially, SDG&E owes the city nearly $36 million, and yet they want to enter into another long-term franchise agreement. I just think this is unacceptable. The city must only enter an agreement with a partner who it can trust to adhere to the terms of the agreement. I believe the city must not proceed with an agreement with any entity with whom it has existing litigation. This is a standard practice in contracting in the private sector. Failures, for whatever reason, to adhere to existing agreements and that expend city resources to go to court must be considered as bad faith bidders and therefore be deemed ineligible. I want to step back for a moment and talk about that a little bit more, because I heard the many folks who called in on behalf of SDG&E as a good community partner. And I say this as someone who comes from the nonprofit world as a nonprofit executive. I appreciate SDG&E's efforts to be a good philanthropic partner. That's super important. That being said, our job is not to determine whether or not someone is a good philanthropist. It's to determine whether or not they're a good partner to the city. And this is a trick and tale as old as time, where large corporate entities, with one hand, flip coins to the community to keep them happy, but with the other hand, undermining the public's efforts to do what it needs to do to support its people. That $35.4 million needs to be put into context. The city is currently facing a budget deficit that could result in severe cuts to core services to the very folks who so many in the nonprofit sector seek to serve, and who everyone at the city is interested in supporting. SDG&E profited $824 million in 2020, yet isn't paying the city the money it's owed. $36 million is real money. That's a lot, friends. I know that there is currently a proposal put forward by a nonprofit seeking $1 million to fund an environmental youth corps that would provide green job opportunities to San Diego's youth. We could fund that program 36 times over if the city paid what it was owed by franchisees. I'll make this even more real for people. If SDG&E just forked over what it owed to the city, we could pay the rent for about 20,000 San Diegans. It's unacceptable that this is going on. And the argument that I've heard thus far, that this is really just about figuring out who should pay, whether it should be just San Diegans or the region as a whole, that I also think is a flawed argument. All of that assumes that the cost should be bared by ratepayers. And again, ratepayers, that means San Diegans, residents, and business owners. That's flawed. There's nothing that says it must be ratepayers that share that burden. SDG&E, as is the practice in the corporate world, is looking to socialize costs while privatizing their profits. I'm not okay with that. Finally, I'll say that these franchise agreements have real world impacts. Merely keeping the lights on is not enough. Gas and electricity are necessities, and the franchisee must take seriously both their responsibility to the public and their responsibility to the city. I look forward to a continued partnership with my council colleagues and the mayor in the next steps of this process to ensure we get the best deal possible for San Diegans. Thank you all again for participating tonight. And as this is an informational item only, no motion is required. We will now adjourn committee meeting to the next meeting on Thursday, March 18th.